Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all. Thank you for joining in today. We'll just wait for a few more minutes as we have participants trickling in. Thank you. Hi, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Thank you all for joining in today. This is our first webinar that we are organizing of the year and wishing you compliments of the season. So today, as part of the subnational um, integration communities of practice of the Asialeds Partnership, we are organizing a series of webinars, the first being of today of climate action planning guidance for subnational governments. Next slide, please. So the agenda for today is I will give a little bit of introduction about the Asialeds Partnership, and this will be followed by an exciting array of methodologies and platforms that we will be discussing on how you as participants and as representatives of different regions and cities can develop climate action plans through some of these methodologies and platforms that on climate action that we will be presenting today. Next slide, please. So a little bit about the Asialeds Partnership. The Asialeds Partnership was launched way back in 2012, so almost now 10 years, and it is a voluntary regional network promoting low emission development strategies across the region in Africa, in Asia, as well as in Latin America. And we look at supporting the NDC planning and implementation in different countries. So we have, as part of the Asialeds Partnership, the South Asia, ICLEI South Asia has been the host so far, and we also have our other country representatives and regions who have been supporting us in this. So we have the Southeast Asia office, and then we have the East Asia office, as well as the Kaohsiung Chinese Taipei office supporting us in this endeavor. Next slide, please. So we are a strong member country, member organization with 112 and 73 organizations and individuals participating in our activities. So we have 21 organizations from an array of countries ranging from Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand. We have around 65 government agencies that have been part of our membership. And we have individual members which cut across private sector, civil society, experts, consultants working in this area. Next slide, please. So of the Asialeds Partnership, we have different communities of practice, and one of them being the subnational integration community of practice. We largely focus on providing support to integrating the multi-level climate governance for achieving the NDCs and climate action at the city level. We have in the past been supporting several city representatives. We've also done a climate action resilient plan for Bhutan, for Sarpang district, as well as for Kurunegala city in Sri Lanka. We've also done a case study and supported through the policy framework for scaling up energy efficiency at the local level with the city of Rajkot in India, as well as achieving a climate responsive budget in Philippines through climate action. We would love to have you join us in this in these activities, and through your support we have also been able to provide a series of webinars that are going to come to you, and we hope to have your active participation in. So firstly being the climate action planning webinar that we have today. This will be followed by next week, where we have the prioritization and structuring of projects, and followed by the measuring and reporting and verification guidance for national governments. And we have experts in this field who will be supporting us in these activities. Next slide, please. So this is, so before the pandemic, of course, we were able to have a series of events where we brought in representatives from different countries who would come and share their experience of climate action at their local level. And so this was one of the activities at the NDC partnership in December 2019, where we had representatives from Chinese Taipei, Mongolia, Bangladesh, who represented it today. Thank you. Next slide. So these are the different communities of practice, and you're most welcome to join any of these. So we have on the left, the Grid Renewable Energy Community of Practice, which focuses on distributed energy resources and resilient energy systems and economic recovery. We also have the NDC COP, which focuses on blended finance and green bonds. We have the Clean Mobility COP, which is also on electric mobility. And of course, we have the Building Energy Efficiency Community of Practice, which looks at building efficiency at the sub-national and the national level. Next slide, please. So coming to the topic of today, and why are we looking at climate action planning? So just a little bit of background. Asia has more people in coastal cities than any other city in the world. And by 2050, it is said that lethal heat waves, extreme precipitation events, hurricanes, droughts, and changes are to be predicted. And we can all see that through the recent calamities that we have all been facing. And the rising temperatures is going to affect our livability, our employment, our health, and will also possibly close to 10% of our daylight hours will also be affected. So the countries at the low level per capita GDP are most at risk, and as we know, we all are part of this. So in the image that you see below, you can see how from today till 2050, the average temperature is projected to increase in many parts of Asia. Next slide, please. So cities and climate change. Cities, you know, as the hub of economic activity, and in Asia, they are increasing around to 50%. 50% of us are going to be urbanized in the next few decades. Cities are also responsible for 75% of the global CO2 emissions, and we are all at risk, especially in terms of the basic infrastructure that is put up, housing, human livelihoods, and health. So the steps that we have to take now is to build resilience and enable sustainable development in urban areas to accelerate climate adaptation globally. This is the reason why we have been looking at this particular webinar today. Next slide, please. So when we talk at COP26, there was an urgent need for multi-level and cooperation action that was highlighted. And as of today, we have been looking at this through various funding opportunities. Initiatives have been launched, and focusing on subnational governments for climate action has become a key priority. And hence, we at this SNI COP have been the frontiers to ensure that this takes place. Next, please. Next slide, please. Yeah. So some of the tools and processes to support city level action planning. So we will be showing you an array of options and opportunities that we have from the ICLEI platforms. So we have something on the process of guidance that we will talk about, the GHG emission inventory, guidance for solutions, as in the platforms that are available to you, and also the project preparation and pipeline support that we can provide you. I will not go too much into detail, as my colleagues will be referring to all this in the next slides. Some of the housekeeping rules for today. Please, all participants will be on mute currently. However, if you do have a question or a clarification, you may raise your hand and one of my colleagues will attend to you, and we can respond to you immediately. For your questions, please ask them in the question answer box. And there are moments in the session where we will have question and answer separately, and you may also speak if required in those. Next slide. So before we go any further, we would like to have a bit of an ice-breaking session for everybody. So I would request you, if you could either scan this code, or you could also type in and go to ahaslides.com/I8RK5. And there are a couple of questions that we would like you to answer. I will now move on to that slide, and I hope you will be able to access the platform, and we would love you to answer so that we get to know a bit more about you, the region that you are from. Yes, we can also put up the link in the chat box. Yes, my colleague has already put the link in the chat box, so please refer to that. Yeah. I think it will take some time for everybody to get acquainted with the platform. So I think while you do put in the answers into this, I will actually not, okay, we have started getting some answers. Yeah, so while the answers keep coming in, I will go on to the next part of the session. And I would like to introduce my colleague, Nikhil Patil, to take over the next session. Before that, I will introduce him. So Nikhil Patil works as a senior manager for energy and climate change programs at ICLEI South Asia. He has over a decade of experience in the areas of renewable energy, energy efficiency, climate change, and urban sustainability. He has supported more than 30 cities and state governments in South Asia and Southeast Asia through various projects and initiatives across their areas, including specifically on the development of GHG emission inventories, climate action, and climate action planning. Nikhil is certified and a certified urban GHG inventory specialist under the World Bank's City Climate Planner Certificate Program. I would now have the pleasure to ask Nikhil to take over and proceed with the following session. Nikhil, you're on mute.
Yeah, thanks, Pratibha. A very warm welcome to all participants. Glad to be here, and I will be sharing a bit more about some of the tools that we have and wherein we have supported cities and climate action planning, and also just sharing glimpses and experiences of how these have been applied in the cities. Yeah, to just get started, since we already saw a background of how climate change is expected to happen, or it's happening already in the region, and how it's impacting cities, it's crucial that cities also start working towards building climate resilience. So what does climate resilience mean? It means planning and taking actions for climate mitigation and adaptation. Mitigation refers to actions which essentially help us to reduce energy use and GHG emissions that lead to climate change. So this refers to the way and how much of electricity we use in our buildings, in our homes, in industries, and so on. Also, how are we using fuels in our transportation systems, be it private vehicles, public transport. So any actions that help us reduce the amount of energy or bring in efficiency, also maybe look at how we are, dumping our waste, how we are managing our waste. So all these actions are addressed through mitigation. Adaptation refers to actions where we are seeing how we can deal with climate change that is already happening, or it's going to happen, climate impacts that are happening, or they will happen in the near future. So for example, how do we construct and design our buildings so that they are thermally comfortable for occupants, given that the average temperatures and seasons, we see there are seasonal changes and also temperatures are rising. Or maybe how do we design our drainage systems so that we are able to deal with very high rainfall in a short duration. A key point when cities are undertaking this sort of planning is that it should be inclusive for everyone, and it should focus on also the vulnerable sections and segments of society and population who relatively experience higher impacts on climate change, and this has a higher bearing on them. In terms of where there is potential for climate change, so it's essentially typically in all the urban sectors, where some of your cities already, of course, you are developing infrastructure. There is planning ongoing in these sectors. So be it transportation, be it how land is being planned and used, the way we are constructing and operating buildings, different types of buildings, also in water supply, in sanitation, in solid waste. Health has emerged as a key area in recent years. Also areas such as urban greening, given, again, the rise in temperature. A key element is finance or funds to implement action. So how to organize these, how to tap into this. Community engagement and awareness is also important, because the community's role is important when you're implementing solutions or you're adopting sustainable solutions. That is a critical element. A number of cities have taken cognizance of this and the need to come up with climate resilience action plans, which essentially address climate mitigation and adaptation. And here there are 4 examples of 4 cities from India that have prepared these comprehensive climate action plans, which address multiple sectors. And all these plans, as a signal of intent and commitment, these plans have also been approved by the local municipal councils or the political bodies in these cities. So these action plans, like I said, they address adaptation, mitigation. So they include solutions and actions for different sectors, the ones that we saw earlier. So for each sector, there are solutions and strategies. Also, these plans outline what are the benefits, such as energy saved, the GHG emission reduction. The cost of these interventions are outlined in the plans. And based on this, the cities then have quantitative targets for emission reduction. So these plans are 5-year plans. So there's also a set goal that the cities are working towards. And again, it's commendable in terms of the commitment of the cities that these cities have been able to allocate funds in their municipal budget towards these climate action plans. So, these action plans are not just documents or something on paper. but the cities also have demonstrated the intent, and they're ensuring that these action plans are already integrated in the municipal frameworks and the annual budgetary cycle as well. Another example is Gelefu municipality in Bhutan, which again has a climate action plan developed and also a commitment for its adoption and implementation. So coming to the first tool or the larger methodology that cities have been using to go about doing this action planning and implementation. So this is the climate resilient cities methodology. This has been developed by my organization, Italy. This is based on our work with cities in the region and globally for the period of 2 decades or so, and it addresses both adaptation mitigation, and also it is aligned with how cities and city governments and also regional governments go about in terms of planning and implementation. So this methodology, it essentially consists of 3 phases. So as in any planning process, this involves 3 phases: analyze, act, accelerate. The analyze phase is essentially where you understand the existing status and then you assess your gaps. The act phase is where you then try to identify solutions and you implement those solutions and you monitor how they are being implemented. The accelerate phase is where you review the implementation, you see what is successful, what actions do you need to scale up, also if you need to add additional solutions, and how you can again start the cycle again, and also how you can share your knowledge, your success stories, your lessons with other cities, with the community as well. We'll just be taking a look now at some of the key activities across these phases of the climate resilient cities methodology. So the first phase, like I mentioned, is primarily on the baseline assessment, the analyze phase. So key starting point here is getting a commitment from the city, or the city issuing a commitment in terms of announcement, a notification, which signals its intention to go ahead with this climate action planning process. This also gives a clear directive when it comes from a decision maker in the city, that it gives a directive to the departments in the city that the city is clear and it wants to go ahead with this entire process and also implementation. A key aspect is also ensuring that there's a climate core team and resources in place, stakeholders are engaged. Another key output from this first phase is a city climate profile, where various urban systems in the city, such as water supply, solid waste management, and so on, are looked at from a climate lens in terms of how vulnerable are these systems, also how vulnerable are the populations, which areas are vulnerable to climate change impacts. And the last 2 outputs are essentially, this will help you to identify the climate vulnerabilities and risks. And another output is the GHG emissions inventory. We'll look at this in a bit more detail in the next slides. So starting with key initial step is in terms of having the right resources in place and also the institutional structures. So a number of cities that have successfully prepared these plans and also are implementing these plans, they have a climate core team in place, which essentially has been formalized, it's been established, and it consists of staff from various municipal departments who are sort of responsible for the entire planning and monitoring of the action plan and its implementation. Ensuring that the staff from various departments are there, it helps in terms of getting knowledge from different sectors and departments. Also helps because the departments then know which projects are going on, where you can implement, where you can integrate climate components or elements, and also they have an understanding of where the finance and funding is coming from, for which which departments under which schemes. It's also important to engage stakeholders because they bring in local knowledge, and also ensuring buy-in from the community. It helps in terms of the adoption of actions, because essentially city governments can prepare plans, but the success also depends on the community accepting and implementing and taking actions in their day-to-day life. So in terms of stakeholder engagement, these are glimpses of stakeholders being engaged and being consulted in Bhutan, Sri Lanka, and India during the climate action planning process. Typically, two to three workshops happen of this type in the cities. One starting workshop where the city signals its intent to the stakeholders, and then the stakeholders also provide information in terms of let's say how is water supply situation, which areas or wards are facing issues, maybe what are the climate impacts being faced. Also giving inputs on what sort of solutions are possible, what will work in the local context, what are the chances of success, and so on. So like I mentioned earlier, the key output is the city climate profile, where the urban services and infrastructure, they are looked at through a climate lens or a climate angle. This helps to draw linkages as well. So for example, if we have a city where we see that so there are gaps in solid waste management, and you see there's a lot of littering of garbage happening in near drains and natural water channels. Then when there are incidences of heavy rainfall, high intensity rainfall, such areas can be prone to waterlogging and flooding, because the garbage just blocks the natural flow, and also it blocks the drainage that is there. So such linkages and issues can be identified, and appropriately they can be addressed, because in some cases the low-lying areas themselves don't have appropriate drainage network because of the geography. So this gives a sort of a robust and understanding of the infrastructure and how ready is it to deal with various climate impacts. This then leads to what you see on the right is the climate vulnerability assessment, where for each urban system, like water supply, transport, solid waste, wastewater, or at a spatial level for each ward or each administrative zone, the city assesses, which areas are vulnerable. So for example, when there is low rainfall, which areas also have an issue with the water supply. They do not really regularly, they don't have the infrastructure to supply water on a daily basis. Then in addition to that, if you have low rainfall or low water availability, these areas will be quite vulnerable. Similarly, where are the low-lying areas, where there is dense settlement, and so on. So all these maps or spatial analysis, it is then combined, it's overlaid. So you then get the vulnerability hotspots. That is which areas and specific locations are there where urban systems, multiple urban systems are impacted by climate change. So these are more at risk. So this, there are again tools in the climate resilient cities methodology, which help and which are used by cities to do this mapping and assessment. This essentially provides a clear picture and pinpoint specific locations and populations that can be focused on. This is an example again of Kota Kinabalu city in Malaysia, where again similar vulnerability assessment has been done and hotspots have been identified. Another key output is the GHG emission inventory, where essentially which helps cities understand that at the citywide level, what is the type of energy use or energy consumption that's happening in different sectors, and the emission, the GHG emissions from this. So, based on the electricity consumption and fuel use in residential buildings, in commercial buildings, in industries, in the transport sector. So what sort of is the contribution? Where do these sectors stand? What are the key drivers of emissions and energy use? So appropriately, then these areas can be tackled. So for example, you can have renewable energy installations, you can have energy efficiency fixtures in certain buildings where there's a high contribution. To help cities do, undertake the GHG emissions inventory, again, we have a tool called the Heat Plus tool. This is a web-based tool developed by Italy. So what this tool does is it helps cities to estimate their GHG emissions. And what the cities have to do is essentially they have to gather information on what is the electricity consumption on an annual basis in the residential sector, in the commercial buildings, in industries, what and how much of fuel are used for heating and cooking, what fuel, how much petrol, how much diesel is used in the transport sector. So once you have this data, it can be fed into the software, and the emissions, the results will be the emission estimates. This Heat Plus tool, essentially, it is also been, there have been country versions developed for around 10 countries, which use specific data and factors to the countries. So the data sets from the countries are used. So this helps the tool to, give very fairly or accurate and local emission estimates for various, and the emission estimates, again, they cover the primary GHG gases, so the greenhouse gases, that's carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, and a few others as well. The Heat Plus tool is also compatible, or it aligns with the international standards and protocols, accepted methodologies as well. And it's been used by around nearly 50 cities in the region. We now have a quiz. So Pratibha, do you want to come in here?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Nikhil. So the next question is now popping up onto your AHA slides as well. So the question is, what is the larger methodology for climate action planning that has been applied in cities through ICLEI's support? One of the answers is correct. So kindly answer the question. Okay, we have.
Yeah, so is the larger methodology the cities for resilience? Is it called resilience in cities, the climate resilient cities, or the Heat Plus? You can provide your responses.
So I will just share my screen as well to show some of the answers that are popping in. If you do have a concern in accessing the slides, please kindly mention that in the chat box, so some of my colleagues can help you as well.
Yeah, I think we have a fair bit of responses in. So the highest responses for Heat Plus and then the climate resilient cities. Yeah, so I think I need to buck up my presentation because the actual methodology is the climate resilient cities, which is the larger methodology, which is used for action planning. Yes, we saw the first phase, that ACT phase. And the heat plus is a tool for emission estimation, not for, it's a subset of this climate resilient cities methodology. Anyway, I think we will move on, and yeah, thank you for your responses. Yeah, so like we just saw in the quiz, the climate resilient cities methodology is the larger methodology for action planning. Coming to the second phase here, which is the ACT phase. So this essentially, once we have understood where we stand in the baseline, in this phase, the cities essentially can identify a longer list of solutions, climate solutions, or low carbon solutions, or sustainable solutions across sectors. Then they can prioritize the solutions based on the local conditions, the resources, also local priorities. This will help to then set targets and have prioritized actions ready in the form of a climate action plan across different sectors. The next step is then to go about implementing some of these actions, transforming them into local projects. So then detailing out how will you implement, how will you fund these actions. Some of these actions might be implemented on a pilot or a smaller scale, and then the city can scale these up. And also a key aspect is looking at monitoring of these solutions. Once they're implemented, what are the benefits? What are the implications or impacts? Is the implementation successful? What are the lessons learned, and so on. Yeah, just to again give a flavor of what are the key steps. But the first one is identifying a long list of climate actions or interventions. So for instance, here for each sector, we sort of start with a longer list. So if we assume for the water supply or the water sector, we can have solutions at the consumer end, or you can also have at the upstream end. So for example, a solution can be rainwater harvesting systems for water conservation. These are installed in buildings, or maybe water efficient fixtures and taps are installed. Or at the other end is you can have actions in the infrastructure for water supply. So, you can refurbish your pipelines for water, so there's lesser leakage, or you can have advanced systems like SCADA. So these are, this longer list is identified, the potential, who is responsible or which department is responsible to implement is also identified. This is done for all the sectors. And it is based on the baseline assessment, so you can again identify specific locations and wards or areas which these solutions can be implemented. The next step is prioritizing this longer list. So again, here we look at feasibility, which involves technical feasibility. So maybe one aspect can be, how easily is the technology available? Then from political standpoint, what is the priority? Is there a major change in regulation required? From a financial angle also, feasibility is looked at. In terms of the time required for implementing these solutions, is it an easily implementable solution? And also the results, are they seen quite quickly? So these are some of the parameters that are looked at during the prioritization. Again, these tools are available in the larger methodology. Some key points to sort of note are we aim for not only infrastructure solutions, but also softer solutions like policy, regulation, capacity building, which can support the infrastructure solutions. And this entire process of identification of solutions and shortlisting, it's done by the climate core team, which consists of different departments. So they ideally do this in the cities. They identify this longer list and also undertake prioritization, and then this prioritization is shared with the stakeholder groups through consultations. to get the inputs and any any local knowledge, any successes or examples that they have that they can share, so that all this feeds into the action plan. A key aspect is also to ensure that these solutions are linked to any ongoing plans or programs that are there in the city. This will ensure that that solution is actually implemented on ground. So for example, let's say if your city or region has a project or a scheme for affordable housing or social housing, then ensuring that when these houses are constructed, we want to target water conservation and energy use reduction also. So two possibilities are that in these projects, in the design, we include rainwater harvesting systems when designing these affordable housing buildings. Also, these buildings can be constructed in a way that they are well designed so that they require less lighting. There's more of natural light, there's more ventilation, so then you require less energy. So as far as possible, all the cities that have successfully implemented action plans, climate action plans, they have linked the interventions or solutions into their existing existing work, existing programs. Cities also have pilot tested solutions, like I was mentioning, and then they can scale it up. So for example, the city of Thane in India, they have implemented solar PV and energy efficient fixtures in a school. Then they saw the results. And based on that, they have allocated further funding in the municipal budget to scale this up to 10 to 15 other schools. Similarly, the city of Rajkot, it changed its street lights. It replaced it with efficient LED lights for 300 lights to begin with. This resulted in improvement in lighting levels, also a significant saving in energy. So based on this, then the city scaled this up to 60,000 street lights. Similarly, they have tackled groundwater recharge. Yeah, in terms of solutions, coming to another tool, to help cities again identify what solutions are possible, is the Solutions Gateway, which is an online platform developed by ICLEI. So this platform essentially provides practical guidance and knowledge on the solutions in terms of how cities can go ahead with implementing these step by step. What are some of the good practices and case studies? So this is a free for use platform. It's developed by by experts and also peer reviewed. So the solutions on the platform currently, there are about 9 solution packages or 9 areas or sectors, we can say, such as air quality, waste to energy, solar energy, water supply, stormwater, and so on. So within each solution package, there are further, different solution types, and also supported by case studies as well. So this is a very useful resource, again, for city governments and also regional governments. So I urge you to check this out. This is currently also being updated, this platform, as we speak. I think that's it in terms of the presentation. To close, we again have one more quiz. So Pratibha, you want to take this one?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Nikhil, for the presentation. Another quiz has come up on your screens, and I have, in fact, got a few responses already. I'll just share my screen for that. So far we have what are the actions that have been implemented in your city. We have a majority of actions related to renewable energy, and of course, waste management and water management as well. So I think this will support us and help us in identifying some kind of support and assistance that might be required in these cities and what we can focus on. Thank you. Ritwik, can you put up the slides? We will now move on to the next part of the session, which is on the knowledge management platforms that we have. And I would like to introduce our speaker, Ms. Pam Kabagunga, who is a manager at the Low Emission Development Pathway at ICLEI, Southeast Asia. She is responsible for Low Emission Development Pathway portfolio of ICLEI at the Southeast Asia office. She oversees program management and building relationships with member and network cities of ICLEI and with organizations in pursuit of joint and concerted climate action and urban sustainability. She works with local governments in establishing city-level GHG emission inventories, formulating local climate action plans, climate data reporting, peer-to-peer learning, and knowledge management. Ms. Pamela has an undergraduate degree in environmental planning and management at Miriam College and is currently pursuing her master's degree in environmental management and studies to continue to adapt to the fast evolving nature of policies, technologies, and advocacy in the field of urban sustainability. We're delighted to welcome Ms. Pamela to this webinar, and I'll now hand it over to her to proceed with the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Pratibha, for the introduction. I went ahead with sharing my screen, and I hope that everyone can see it and you can hear me okay. Once again, hello, everyone. I'm Panta Bakungan, and today I'm tasked to share with you some of the knowledge sharing and management platforms that we have at ICLEI. So now more than ever, the role of local and national governments are crucial in filling the gaps of the Paris Climate Agreement goals, and this is where multi-level governance comes into play. So as stated in a case study by GIZ, ICLEI, and UN Habitat, no state can implement meaningful climate action without its cities, and similarly, no city can effectively tackle climate change without a proper framework set by the state. And this case study also mentioned that the creation of national systems and committees is a common practice to organize public and private stakeholder vertically and horizontally. And it is also in these venues where knowledge sharing can exist. So, and over the years, ICLEI has developed and co-founded various knowledge sharing platforms that allow cities and experts to interact with one another, learn and elevate ambitions in urban sustainability. But today, I will just be focusing on the platforms that directly relate to the low emission, climate resilient, and equitable development pathways of ICLEI. And this, as you can see on the screen, are the ones that I will be presenting and introducing to you in the next slides. So to start off, I would just like to bring you back to the three phases of the climate resilient cities methodology that was introduced by Nikhil earlier. So as you go along each phase of this process of this methodology, there are several knowledge sharing platforms that you can join to further enhance your learning experience and practice in formulating and implementing your climate action plans. And by joining any or all of these platforms, you are given access to different technical learning and financing and partnership opportunities to enable you to fulfill the commitments to take ambitious climate actions and lobby and inspire other local governments as well to do the same. And to start off, I would just like to get started first with the Global Covenant of Mayors for Climate and Energy, or the GCOM, which is the largest global alliance for city climate leadership. It invites local governments globally to make the following pledges. First is to reduce or limit greenhouse gas emissions, prepare for the impacts of climate change, increase access to sustainable energy, and track progress towards fulfilling these three commitments. And the GCOM has more than 10,000 city memberships from more than 130 countries, impacting more than 900 million of the global population. And these cities have demonstrated their leadership are set to collectively contribute to reducing 24 billion tons of carbon dioxide by 2030. And member of GCOM starts with their climate leadership journey by first making a commitment and formulating and implementing a climate action plan in a process that is in parallel to what was presented earlier, the climate resilient cities methodology, and update their climate actions for continuous improvement. And to track the progress of cities in fulfilling their climate commitments under GCOM, a badge system is also in place, and it starts with the issuance of a commitment badge once you have joined GCOM. And the mitigation badge is gained after you have submitted an emissions inventory, you have already set a greenhouse gas reduction target, and a mitigation plan. And similarly, the adaptation badge is gained if the following are reported: a climate risk and vulnerability assessment, you have also set a resilience goal, and you have also set an adaptation plan. So once all of this have been fulfilled by your city, a compliance badge is then awarded to your local government. And GCOM also has three main initiatives that support the member cities with their climate action journey and gain these badges. The Invest for Cities seeks to increase the flow of public and private investment to support the implementation of climate change projects. Data for Cities, on the other hand, aids in the generation and management of data and information that are needed to develop evidence-based climate action plans. And finally, we have the Innovate for Cities, which focuses on research and innovation of climate solutions for cities. So if your city wishes to join GCOM, you may sign the commitment letter using the prescribed template and send it to your regional or national covenant. I've added the email address as you can see on the screen. And communicate your commitment to your constituents, and also start with the process of developing citywide knowledge and goals and plans as ambitious as your cities as your country's NDC, and then you will proceed to tracking and reporting your progress in fulfilling your GCOM commitment via the CDP ICLEI Unified Reporting System. So if you wish to learn more about GCOM, you can visit the official website as you can see on the screen. Now, we move on to the next platform, which is very helpful in elevating the discourse and action from the local government level to the higher levels of government, which is the cities and regions Talanoa dialogue. And Talanoa is a traditional approach in Fiji to engage in an inclusive, participatory, and transparent dialogue. So just to give a brief context about this, in COP21, a decision was made to convene a facilitative dialogue to take stock of the preparation of the NDCs. And this is to be known later on as the Talanoa Dialogue, which was launched in January 2018 and was to culminate at COP24 in 2019. And as a response to this, ICLEI, together with its special partners, UN Habitat and GCOM, also launched the Cities and Regions Talanoa Dialogue, which has a similar or parallel goals as the larger Talanoa Dialogue process. So what happens is that in the Cities and Regions Talanoa Dialogues convince local and regional governments and their national ministries of climate, environment, organization, along with host organizations and climate stakeholders to take stock of and shape and strengthen the NDCs. The outcomes of these events, these dialogues, are being collected, are gathered by ICLEI, and in its capacity as the focal point of LGMA, ICLEI presents or communicates these outcomes as in the larger Talanoa Dialogue process at COP24 negotiations. And while this was supposed to have concluded at COP24, the Cities and Regions Talanoa Dialogue remains to be relevant and important process in being adopted by more cities and regions to this date because as we also know, in the recently concluded COP26, which formulated the Glasgow Climate Pact, regions, the non-state actors, including cities and local and subnational governments, are still very important in the process of doing multi-level and cooperative action in fulfilling the Paris Agreement. So what happens in this dialogue? So basically, actors come together to review the state of climate action in their country, build new opportunities for collaboration across all levels of government, and create a roadmap towards stronger action at all levels of government, and agree on the next step on how we're going to coordinate and really realize this multi-level action in fulfilling the country's NDCs. And these activities revolve around discussions guided by these three questions. First is to understand where are we in terms of our NDCs, and where do we want to go from there, considering the possible options that climate actions at the local level can be integrated and enhance the current and future NDCs of their country. And the last question is, how do we get there, or how can national governments collaborate with local and regional governments to mobilize appropriate technical, financial, and policy resources to realize solutions addressed in delivering and in raising their NDC. So an example for this, ICLEI facilitated an open dialogue between local and national governments in Indonesia, the Philippines, and Vietnam through the Ambitious City Promises project. And as what was interesting during this time was that the cities of Jakarta, Pasig, and Hanoi were in the process of updating their climate action plans, their local climate action plans, and simultaneously their countries are also updating or preparing their NDCs during that period. So since the timeline are in parallel with each other, we brought together these two levels of government in a single space so that they can discuss openly and a level of understanding and establish coherence in the direction of the local climate action plans and the NDCs at the national level. Another knowledge sharing platform made available for local governments, especially those that would really want to accelerate the implementation and enhancement of their climate ambitions, are the sibling campaigns rather, the Cities Race to Zero and the Cities Race to Resilience. So these sibling campaigns are led by the UN high-level climate champions for climate action it was created ahead of COP26 to rally leadership and support from all non-state actors for healthy, resilient, and zero carbon recovery. So just like any races, there are different tracks under this larger global campaign, and the city track actually was convened by different city networks, including ICLEI and other institutions, as you may see as listed on the screen. And as mentioned earlier, this global campaign is intended for non-state actors. So we have cities, regions, businesses, investors, and schools. And for cities in particular, the Cities Race to Zero has more than 1,000 cities that have signed up. And Race to Resilience has more than 16 cities that have signed up so far. And for cities who are interested to join either or both the Cities Race to Zero or Cities Race to Resilience may do so by fulfilling the following requirements. The first one is to pledge net zero emissions as soon as possible for Cities Race to Zero, and to integrate climate change adaptation and resilience in urban planning, and to undertake community-wide climate risk and vulnerability assessment for cities Race to Resilience. And secondly, the city must plan and set interim targets and milestones as part of a long-term commitment for citywide climate action using available climate change knowledge and scientific evidence. But focusing more on the Cities Race to Zero, in particular, the city must set an interim target representing its fair share of 50% reduction by 2030 within 12 months of joining this campaign. And third, the city must proceed to implementing at least one mitigation and or adaptation action as listed in the catalog or menu of mitigation and adaptation actions listed in these two platforms. And finally, the city must report its progress in fulfilling its pledge on an annual basis using any of the recognized reporting platforms by Cities Race to Zero and Cities Race to Resilience. The process of joining either or both of these campaigns is pretty straightforward. The first step is to visit the official websites. As you can see on the screen, uh, you can just check it out later after the webinar. And then after visiting the website, you may click on the join button and carefully read the pledges under Cities Race to Zero or Cities Race to Resilience, as discussed just now in the previous slide. And then the next step is to select the reporting platform that you will be using to report your progress in fulfilling your commitments in either of these two goals, these campaigns. So the CTP Clay Unified Reporting System and the My Covenant are recognized platforms in this initiative. And if you're not currently reporting to either of these platforms, you may also indicate this in your application process, and you will be approached and assisted in setting up your data reporting account. And next is to commit to at least one action from the catalog of mitigation and adaptation actions you will find in the application process. You can see on the screen are some examples of options you can choose from. So for example, for Cities Race to Resilience, you may choose from creation of green spaces by planting trees, or move towards resilient, sustainable energy systems, and reduce food loss and waste, among others. And then in the plan that you will be creating later on and reporting later on, you will be substantiating how you're going to really execute this climate actions you've chosen. The next step is to sign and submit your pledge. Please note that only the mayor or the council leader or an equivalent can sign the pledge on behalf of the city. And finally, the city shall then take immediate action on its pledge by executing and fulfilling its commitments and reporting this annually to the chosen reporting platform. So I've mentioned a lot about reporting platforms. So the last one that I'm introducing today is the CDP Clay Unified Reporting System. And this one focuses on climate data reporting. So since 2018, CDP and ICLEI joined forces in a partnership to form what is called the CDP ICLEI Unified Reporting System, with a goal to simplify the reporting of cities and take the burden from local and regional governments to report in different places, and instead they could focus on concentrating and improving their data and data disclosure. And in 2020, over 800 cities from around the world reported through the system. And by disclosing their data, these cities were able to measure and monitor their progress in meeting their climate objectives. They were able to understand data gaps, to inform what resources and support are still needed. And then they are also able to learn more and contribute to the pool of knowledge about climate actions at the local level. And they were also able to demonstrate their leadership and impact that local authorities can achieve, and further inspire other local authorities and globally and locally to implement climate actions and disclose this to enhance also the local government's transparency in this regard. So how does reporting through this system works? The first one is for cities to receive the questionnaire. There is a standard reporting questionnaire that cities will be asked to fill out with their climate data. Cities will disclose this data to the CDP ICLEI Unified Reporting System, and CDP manages this data. The data that you have reported will then be shared with the partners' initiatives that you have signed up for. So for example, you are a member of GCOM, then your data will also shared with the GCOM Secretariat. If you've joined One Planet City Challenge by the WWF, then your data will also be shared with WWF. So these initiatives can work with your city to participation in events, advocacy, and technical assistance. And by participating in these different opportunities and engagements, it is hoped that along the way, you are also able to improve on your climate data. And then you are then again invited to report these improvements in the next reporting cycle. So reporting by cities through this platform is done on an annual basis also. So to get started with your reporting journey, you may just visit www.cdp.net and it will take you to the CDP's website, which is the entry point of the reporting platform. So I won't be able to walk you through the different features and functionalities of the platform, but basically, you will be designated, you can set up your account, you will be designated your dashboard where you can access the online questionnaire, disclose your data, manage your data, and then the platform allows you to also have a space to collaborate with your colleagues, maybe from different offices within your local government as well, to manage your climate data in a centralized and coherent manner, and showcase your climate actions to the public and receive feedback for continuous improvement, and learn and be inspired also from the other climate actions that are being done by your peer cities, not just within your country, but also globally. So yeah, I guess that's it from my side. I hope I was able to briefly introduce you to the different platforms, and maybe after the webinar, you'd be interested in joining any or maybe even all of the platforms that was presented just now. And if you're interested, feel free to connect with us or any of the colleagues that from ICLEI that have organized this webinar. And yeah, looking forward to any questions in the chat box. Thank you.
Thanks, Pamela. Thank you very much. Proceeding forward, we actually do have another quiz for you. And I think my colleague is just putting up the question for you, and it's also in the AHA slides. We've got a few answers to that already. And I think at a later stage, maybe possibly we could also organize another session just for these. So we've asked which platform would you like to know more about? And we have had equal response to the GCOM, the city's race to resilience, and for the CDP. Oh, now it's changed a bit. So this is great. So maybe we can at a later stage coordinate and set up another session for you to know more about this and how possibly you can join these platforms. Yes. So moving forward, I would now like to invite Dr. Esther Mogiorosi to take the session forward. I'd just like to introduce her before that. Dr. Esther manages climate finance within ICLEI's Low Emission Development and Resilient Pathways team, collaborating closely together with the regional offices globally with a goal to support local and regional governments in their net zero emissions and climate resilient project development and access finance. To achieve this, Dr. Esther is managing ICLEI's flagship initiative, the Transformative Actions Program, fondly known as TAP, a pipeline of more than 70 projects with approximately 1.5 billion euro investment potential. Through the TAP, she's actively engaged in project mobilization, screening, and capacity building to identify and support transformative local infrastructure projects to become bankable. Dr. Esther has experience in managing and leading various sustainability-oriented projects in different national and international organizations, providing assistance and analytical support to matters related to climate finance. She has a background in economics and business administration. Thank you, Dr. Esther, for joining in today, and I'll hand it over to you now.
Thank you so much for the introduction, and very happy to be here and be invited. I myself already learned a lot from the two previous presentations, although I'm also an ICLEI colleague. So moving on with the Transformative Actions Program, so-called TAP, as you can see. Just seems to have difficulties changing my slides. hopefully to move on. Yes. So the mission of the TAP is, as you can imagine from the brief introduction that was made. So we would like to help local and regional governments to access finance for their local climate action, and with that, of course, to contribute to the net zero and the climate resilient development. So the TAP is a project pipeline, but it's also a project preparation facility, because we also offer services. I will speak about more in details what kind of services for our TAP applicants, how to improve their TAP application and access finance. And we also use the TAP as an advocacy instrument at international level in international initiatives and events, also to showcase you know, the demand and the need of local projects seeking finance. So the TAP was launched.
Nikhil here, the presentation is not on full screen. Can you just check? It's not the slideshow.
Okay, strange because it's full screen to me, but let's then. Is it now?
No, perhaps maybe one of our colleagues can share them.
Okay. Okay, then I wait for that. Sorry for that.
Yeah.
Not sure, because for me it was showing full screen. So.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so we can right away then move to the third slide. The next. Yes. So apologies for that. So as I mentioned, the TAP was launched already in 2015. And then since then we have annual calls. We are actually at the moment just still screening the projects received from the 2021 call, but already planning to announce the next call. Maybe this year we will do it a bit earlier than usual, already springtime, but this is to be decided. Anyway, we have annual calls. The TAP is basically managed by the ICLEI World Secretariat, but obviously we work closely together with our regional offices, and we also have 16 TAP partners. I will introduce them later. So the TAP, as I mentioned, it's a project pipeline because we mobilize and collect projects through these annual calls. And at the moment, we have 74 projects in the pipeline. But as we are proceeding with the screening of the new applications, this number is expected to grow. So the recent pipeline represents a 2.4 billion euro investment potential. What we know is that, and what we are proud of, is that since 2015, we know that at least 27 projects were successful being in the pipeline. Being successful, so-called tapped, means that the project either managed to access finance or also managed to access, for example, just the technical assistance supporting its project preparation, or the project is already completed. The TAP is more and more acknowledged also internationally. So one of these global initiatives I also highlighted here in the presentation is the Leadership for Urban Climate Investments, the so-called LUCI, which was launched at the UN Climate Summit in 2019. So here, TAP together with other global initiatives and programs is acknowledged to close the finance gap and achieve the goals of the Paris Agreement. The next slide, please. So here are the 16 TAP partners I mentioned. So with them, with each, we have a bilateral agreement on what we do together. As you see, it's quite a diverse partnership. So here we have financing institutions, we have other city networks, We have NGOs supporting with technical expertise, and we have a lot of UN agencies. The next slide, please. So just to zoom in a bit in our pipeline, at the moment, most of the projects we have from Africa. What we see in the 2021 applications, that this year is the first year when we received most of the applications coming from Asia. So I believe that once we finish the screening of the applications of the 2021 projects, maybe the regional distribution will also look slightly different, Asia having a larger portion than it's having at the moment. And regarding the sector distribution, we have most of the projects from the energy sector, but then followed by the waste and land use projects. We are actually very happy having a lot of adaptation and resilience related projects. So we try to keep the pipeline pretty much balanced. And we also encourage our applicants that they submit applications, both thinking about adaptation and mitigation impacts. The next slide, please. So what is the eligibility criteria to submit your TAP application? So as I said, we have annual calls, and we of course have an application form, which when the call is open can be downloaded from the TAP website. So any local subnational governments can submit a TAP application, even their partners. So we also accept applications from NGOs, CSOs, even from private companies. It's just what is for us very important, that in the case when it's not the local or the regional government who is the project submitter, we still need a support letter from them or any kind of proof, just really to be sure that the project is for this local or regional government, that they are the final beneficiary of the project. They will really benefit from this project. It's not just a private company making profits for itself. So we need a proven support at local level. It's very much relating to what I said. And we have to know that the project is a climate project. We check then in detail the transformative impact of the project. I will tell you later what we mean on transformative impact. And I think what is also quite a generous offer is that we offer that we accept projects at any size, so small scale, large scale, and also at any level of the maturity. So we have a very diverse pipeline. As you can imagine, we have projects which are at the very early stage, just the project scoping definition stage, but then we are also projects which are like ready to be implemented. The next slide, please. So regarding the transformative impact, what does it mean? Basically, we have 3 pillars, how we define transformative, ambitious, cross-cutting, and inclusive. We have a much more detailed scoring sheet, what you see here, what we check there. But basically with the ambitious, we want to check the climate ambition of the project. We also want to check if the project is aligned with local, regional, national, even international goals, like, you know, the SDGs or the Paris Agreement. On cross-cutting, we check that a good percentage of the population will benefit from the project. We check scaling, replicable opportunities. And on inclusive, we check if the gender was considered, if vulnerable communities were considered, and if there was a stake or there is planned a reasonable stakeholder consultation. The next slide, please. So basically, these are the 3 steps, the TAP process. So as you already very well know, the first step is mobilizing the projects and receiving the applications, which we then screen based on their transformative impact, just as I explained. And then projects which score higher than 80% in our screening, they get the TAP seal of approval. It's a symbolic seal, but it means that then the project is approved in the pipeline. And as a third step, project can access services, and I will detail later what these services are. The type of services received depend if the project is approved to the pipeline or not. The next slide, please. So here are the services. I think what distinguishes TAP maybe from other project preparation facilities, that we offer services for all our TAP applicants. So not only those that are accepted in the pipeline. So once a TAP application is submitted, the TAP applicant will become automatically member of the so-called TAP community. And this is basically a mailing list what we use to send out MailChimps to inform all TAP applicants about opportunities when there are calls out, not only TAP calls, but also other partners or institutions that we find relevant for local governments and project preparation. We gave access to knowledge products. We organize webinars, and to the webinars, everybody is invited, as well as to our peer learning and knowledge exchange workshops. So this learning we offer to all TAP applicants, and we give a customized feedback to all the applicants. So not only the ones who are accepted in the pipeline, but to all applicants. So we would like to give the chance that then the applicants, if they are committed and interested, they can work with us together, improving their project concept. And as we have annual calls, then we always encourage them to improve and resubmit their application for the next year call. But then those who are accepted in the pipeline, then they are right away eligible to access more advanced services. So for them, we really look for opportunities, how we can connect with them, depending on the level of the maturity of the project, with other project preparation facilities, or with financial partners, technical partners, with investors. We also organize marketplaces, pitch events, where we also facilitate this connection between the project and potential partners. We try to increase the international visibility of this project through writing up case studies, inviting them to international events to be our speakers. And we also advise them on a suitable financing instrument for the project. The next slide, please. So capacity building is very important for us, and very much is part of the project preparation support. So we try to develop tools which are all demand driven. So as we are in very close contact and collaboration with our TAP applicants, so we really try to address their needs and questions. So you can visit the TAP website or the Solutions Gateway, which was also already mentioned before today. So here it's just a list of tools what we developed in the past. We try to keep them very handy and very practical. So the next slide, please. Yeah, so here you can again see the website, and you can also see the email address, the tap@iclay.org, which we are managing. So anytime you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. Thank you so much. And thanks for helping with the slides.
Thank you, Esther. Thank you for this very insightful session. Are there any immediate questions from the audience that we can take up immediately before we go to the exercise? If there are, either you can raise your hands and you can ask the question live. We have, yes, we do have one. Ritvik, can you hand it over to the participant who's who just raised a question?
That I cannot see that hand now.
Okay, Miss Tiffany, I think. Miss Tiffany, would you like to ask a question?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, and as we know, funding is very important across the world in order to get funds for infrastructure, for not only for renewable energy or for the industry. And I'm wondering just how this tool can be efficiently applied in the local city government. Could you give us more detailed information about how to use this tool or method to just illustrate the local government to get this funding or resource? Thank you.
Nikhil, would you like to take that up?
Yeah, I think I'm not sure. I think Esther, maybe if you want to go first on the TAP funding, just to reiterate on how cities can apply and secure the funding, or maybe an example.
Yeah. Yes. Just yes. That's my question. Yes. Through the peer learning, and can you first illustrate more detail about the good example? Yes, which local government they have acquired more funding to successfully just to build the green infrastructure like that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Because funding is very important. Yes.
Yeah, of course.
Yes. Okay, I can start, and then Nikhil, of course, feel free to comment. So from the TAP perspective, so as I said, we have these annual calls for the applications, and so after filling out the application form, we do this screening. What is maybe very important to mention is that we at ICLEI, we don't have funds for the TAP on our own. So we ourselves cannot offer any grants or loans. So what we commit to is that if the application is good enough, if solid enough, then we look for opportunities for our applicants. And then first, what we do, we always check with our TAP partners, the 16 partners I presented, if they have any opportunities to finance, to provide finance for our projects. Here we look always for technical assistance opportunities mostly, and grant opportunities. We, of course, also look at loan opportunities, but based on our experience, most of our TAP applicants so far, they were more interested in technical assistance or grant opportunities. So in the past, that's where it was also our focus on. So then, so for example, where we work now very closely together is the GAP Fund, which is managed by the European Investment Bank and the World Bank. So this is a technical assistance opportunity for project preparation, and they look at early stage projects. So with them, we are partners. So they look both for mitigation and adaptation projects, and it's quite a fast and simple procedure usually to access their technical assistance. So with the GAP Fund, we have multiple good experience and good examples where we mobilize projects for them, filled out the expression of interest, and the projects managed to access technical assistance. But I mean, this technical assistance is just for one part of their project preparation. So usually they support then with pre-feasibility studies, vulnerability assessment, GHG inventory. So I mean, this early stage of project preparation, technical support. So yeah, the gap fund is one very concrete area maybe I would bring in. I don't know if it answered your question, or Nikhil, if you would like to comment on this.
Yeah, thank you, Esther. So yeah, maybe just to add, so for example, some of the cities that have been supported in this TAP application. So this application process is essentially, it connects, it's like a matchmaking platform, which connects you to funders and developmental agencies and financiers. So through this process, cities are supported, say, for example, we've supported cities which have, maybe they have a plan and they've done some pilot on, let's say, bicycle sharing in one part of the city. And now they want to scale it up to other locations. So just in terms of getting the proposal ready, getting it vetted by our sectoral experts and other partners as well, who can then ensure that this proposal is robust enough so that it can then be shared with other developmental agencies. And then this needs to be backed up and supported with various commitments. So what we also have seen over the years is that when cities also have these actions, but they also have larger policies and plans in place. Like, for example, if they have a climate action plan in place, they have a commitment, they have a target. So funders and agencies, and financiers, especially for green infrastructure, they find some of these these are favorable essentially because they show the commitment of the cities, and that is where we have seen some of these cities, they either get technical assistance or they get finance for implementing projects. So these are some of the experiences that we have seen in the cities, and yeah, the projects as such, they can be across across various sectors. They can be projects on say installing solar energy. Maybe you have installed it in 2-3 buildings and you have a plan and a project in place to implement it in maybe 50 buildings as such. Yeah, I think that's it from my side, and I hope it answered the question. What we can also additionally do is we can share information and links of of the platform. It also has some of this information, so maybe post the webinar we'll definitely share these.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Tiffany, for your question. We do have one question in the chat box, and I'll just call it out quickly, and Ms. Pamela can maybe address it in a brief fashion. So the question is, with regard to cities participation, it's quite good, but how sustainable partnership is continued for those cities which are more resource less, especially in case of African cities? Pamela, would you like to just quickly, for the benefit of the rest of the participants, answer? And then we can move forward with the exercise.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Pratibha. I think in general, first of all, on one hand, the city government's commitment at the political and technical level should also be sustained, and on the other hand, the presented ICLEI tools just now goes hand in hand with one another, and these tools are also made available for free, which you can just download and visit online as presented earlier. And there are also regional offices and country offices of ICLEI wherein you can approach also to see how they can possibly you can communicate with them, identify what are the pain points in you're facing when you dealing with the going through the climate action process, setting targets, and communicating these commitments that you have. And that's where we come in, the ICLEI offices, and also the tools that we have presented to you on and present how this can complement or potentially address the problems that you have. And if our capacity is still not enough. There are the various vast network of ICLEI. We can also link you to other partner institutions and organizations so that you can get started with the process and then elevate this the climate ambitions later on. So it's not just a one-time. It shouldn't just be viewed as a one-time thing. We understand that there are limitations and challenges experienced depending on the context of the cities. So yeah, it's a progressive process that we should be undertaking. And I think there's also an interest on the CDP ICLEI URS that was specified here. So I've added my detailed response to that, but essentially that's where we are. So yeah, I hope that answers the question. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I just have shared my screen, and I just wanted to quickly show the results of some of the answers that we got on the AHA slides just before we move on to the exercise. So which region and city do you represent? We have a number of people from all across Asia and even Africa. So you can see this in the thing. Thank you all for joining in, and we wish that you will actively participate in the next exercise. So I will also share this results with you via email as well. So we do have, and this is for the next exercise also. So what are the actions that are already implemented in your city or region? We have a large number of cities implementing renewable energy activities, projects, water management, waste, and a few in the water conservation in buildings and properties, and electric mobility. So this will greatly help us in the next exercise that we take over. And of course, this is for us to know which platforms we should focus on to support you better. So now I will hand it over to my colleague Nikhil as well as Keshav to guide you through the exercise. Thank you. Yes, Nikhil.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Pratibha. So we will quickly just run through an exercise, or I'll say we'll just tweak this around a bit. And yeah, since you've heard a lot from us, we also want to learn from you and what is the situation and what are some of the actions that your cities are taking, or you know, how they are going ahead with implementing action and dealing with climate change. So if my colleagues can just share the link for this exercise, what we will do is we just give you a flavor of the prioritization of climate actions. We have certain actions from different sectors which are there, and we will try to prioritize this using certain criteria. So currently we have actions in, there is an Excel sheet online, which if you can please download it. You may not be able to make the changes online, so please download it at your end and you can then look through it. But essentially it has climate actions for water conservation. So like we spoke about rainwater harvesting systems and dual plumbing and maybe in homes. Then electric mobility is another action. If you want to introduce e-public buses, electric buses, waste management, if your city wants to set up waste processing plants and waste to energy plants, water management, if you want to deal with the water distribution network through water audits, pipe replacement. And also on renewable energy. So from the poll, what we saw, I believe, we saw that a lot of cities or a lot of your cities are working on renewable energy, water management and also waste management. So I'll just give you a glimpse of the exercise, and you can of course download this. My colleagues can share the link in the chat. So if you can see, we have all the interventions listed in the first column. We also have the scale. We have, this is of course a representative case. We have a scale of the intervention, how much is the benefit or how many buses do we want to deploy and so on. And then an estimate of how much is the energy saving, the GHG emission saving. Now, when here for this exercise, we have given one action in each sector, but typically when you go about doing action planning, you will have a series of actions in each sector, and that is where you will need to prioritize firstly, for each sector, different types of actions. So from columns F to I, we have the criteria for prioritization. So these include feasibility, which means, how feasible is the action or the solution from a technical, political, cost benefit standpoint. What is the ease of integration? That means how easy is it to integrate this into your existing city or urban planning schemes or urban programs and policies. Third one is on impact. So what is the size and the measure of the impact, or how much is the benefit in terms of a climate impact or climate benefit, and how soon will this impact be realized? So if it is high impact, then we can select 3 from the drop down. It's something that is very easily doable, and also the benefit is large. We can assign a 3. That's a qualitative ranking you're assigning. Also, additionality is one criteria, which means that is this solution already being implemented in your local context? If in some houses or at some level you're already implementing this action, then it is easier to scale it up instead of starting from 0. So maybe I'll just walk you through the first one. Let's say water conservation, where we look at rainwater harvesting systems. So if we see feasibility in terms of the drop down, we have 3 options. If it's less feasible, it's medium feasibility or high feasibility. So broadly for rainwater harvesting, since the technology is quite, it's quite well known, it's a relatively simple technology. And also from a cost perspective, it is, let's say it's not very high cost. Also, if your city is, it ranks high on the political or, from a regulatory standpoint as well, then we can assign a 3, which is high feasibility. Ease of integration, let's say if it is easy to integrate this solution, maybe in our building bylaws or building regulations, we can have that rainwater harvesting systems can be suggested, or they can be mandated or made compulsory for certain properties of a large size. So we can say possibly that this is again quite high. Let's say in terms of the benefit or the impact, if we assign a medium, that maybe it takes a medium term to realize the impact, and also the scale is medium, the scale of the impact, and whether the impact, whether the action is already being implemented or if it's a new action. Let's say maybe this has been implemented in a couple of housing projects. So once we feed in all these inputs, what we have is the overall priority rank, which again, there are grades here. So 0 to 1 is low, 1 to 2 is medium, above 2 is high. So what we see is the priority rank is coming out to be high. Now, of course, what we want from all of you is maybe if you can just reflect on this for a couple of minutes, look at these solutions, and what we want to hear is, what are some of the reflections, and what are your thoughts in your local context? Which of these solutions make sense, and what is your city or your region doing on some of these solutions? Because even in the poll, we saw that there is responses for renewable energy, waste management, and water management. But yeah, we'd be also happy to hear anything on electric mobility as well. Any thoughts on, what your city is doing, if you want to share, or even from with regard to these criteria, if you think it's a feasible solution, if it's being integrated in the regulatory planning framework, how is your city doing it? So maybe I'll stop here, just give everyone a couple of minutes. I hope you've downloaded this. Yeah, but if not, yeah, this is just an open discussion. We want to also hear from you and learn from you. So if anyone, yeah, please feel free to raise your hand and let us know if you already have any inputs to share. We'll wait for a couple of minutes, I believe. Yeah.
Nikhil, we can also have maybe a live example. Maybe someone can volunteer to speak, and maybe we can show it directly to them, giving a case example.
Yeah.
So if
yeah.
anyone from the
Happy.
participants would like to share the experience and show everybody a live example.
Yeah, we'd definitely be happiest to do that. If you want to volunteer and also help us walk through one of these examples, or yeah, if not, if you want to share a particular aspect of any of these actions, we'd really like to hear from you. Since we also have a wide representation, not only from India, also from other countries in Asia and as well as Africa. So it would be great to hear. Do we see any hands, Pratibha?
No, not
No,
yet.
Nikhil.
Maybe then we can take it internally, and we could Nikhil can put in the answers, and Pam, would you like to volunteer and as a representative from a city and mention what you would the ratings you would like to give?
Yeah.
Hi, Pamela, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm just having quite a difficult time accessing the file. So
Okay.
just
Yes.
let me just load it. But I think there's also a question here that they cannot change the values.
Yes, you will need to download the file because you are only given the rights to view it currently. So if you can download the file, you'll be able to change the values.
Yeah, maybe Pam, if you can just share your thoughts with us, maybe from the context of Philippines and what you see there in any of the cities, if any of the solutions you want to see, maybe starting with feasibility, which of these solutions do you see that cities are implementing more, of late, what makes sense?
Okay, sure. So just looking at the file right now, I'm just trying to speak from my experience with working with some Southeast Asian cities, so particularly Philippine cities. In terms of feasibility, um, for water conservation, as examples of rainwater harvesting systems, there is I think in terms of feasibility, this I would rate this as a 3 as high feasibility, because for example in the Philippines there is actually a law already that is also encouraging not including local governments to adopt rainwater harvesting systems as part of their water conservation program. So it is widely practiced among local governments here. In terms of electric mobility, as an example, I would probably rate this as medium for in terms of feasibility, because this is really more on the concern of the mandates of local government, because there are certain areas of public transport management that falls within the mandate of local government, but then there's also the ones that fall under the national government, which involves different transport related agencies as well. So that's where the difficulties in terms of feasibility, institutional feasibility comes in. And also there's also a need for them to really get better capacity, technical capacity, to establish feasibility studies on how feasible certain options are, such as e-buses. E-buses can be adopted in their jurisdiction, and if the roads, for example, cuts across different municipalities, then that's another challenge that needed to be overcome. For waste management, municipal services on waste, if we are look at this varies really on the type of waste management option that you are introducing. Say for example, but generally, waste management services from collection to disposal, local governments have a strong mandate over this. So in terms of institutional feasibility, you may rate it as 3 as high, but then again, that could bring down on the technical feasibility and political feasibility also, because for example, composting, if you're looking at composting options, then that would be that can be easily implemented within their jurisdictions. But then for waste to energy, which is as another option for them for to process food waste or garden waste, you may score low on technical feasibility, because it needs a lot of studies to back up that. So I would say, I would also just to get on the middle of those concerns, you can probably give a score of a 2. Yeah, if that makes sense. Should I go for each item, or would that be a good enough example for other CT participants to follow?
Yeah, thanks for that, Pam. I think it's good to start kicking it off, and thank you for those inputs. Also agree on the electric mobility, though there is a lot of policy push perhaps and maybe political priority, but yeah, the technical and technological aspects are also challenging overall in the region. I agree. Yeah. Yeah, so any other inputs or reflections from any of the other participants or any of our speakers as well? Be open. Maybe if not, yeah, unless we have any other inputs, what we would suggest is if you can download this sheet, you will not be able to make changes in the online sheet. If you can download it at your end and just yeah, try to think about this, some of these aspects in your context, your city. And yeah, we'll be happy, you know, if you're able to respond over email, and if you have any clarifications or if you need further examples of some of these prioritization, you know, sheets or processes that are done in cities for at a much detailed level, we can also share that with you. I think so. Over to you, Pratibha, now.
Thanks, Ritu. Thank you very much for this exercise. I know it was a bit short on, we were short on time. However, we would love for you to work on the Excel, see what benefits you. And if you do have further clarifications, as Nikhil said, you can write to us and get back to us. And also, if you want to complete the exercise and send it back to us and want some further information on it, we will be happy to do that as well. I think we have now come to the closing of this session, and I would like to thank all of you today for joining on our first session. Ritu, can you put up the slide, please? Or maybe I can just, yeah. Next slide, please. So post this session, next slide, please. After this. Yes, so post the session, we would like you to participate in a feedback form that we have developed on Zoom itself. And your feedback definitely for this session will be very valuable. And as we move forward to the other sessions as well, any critiques, criticism that you may have, or any support that you might need, or any inputs will really help us moving forward. I would also like to invite you to participate in the upcoming SNI COP webinars that we have and other activities that we have planned for. The next session will in fact be on the 25th, which will be on prioritization and structuring of climate projects. And we will have external experts who have been working in this field for quite some time and many cities have benefited from these methodologies that have been developed. I would also like to invite you to join us in the SNI COP. I will just put in the form also in the chat. And for any updates that you would require on SNI COPs, any newsletters, any information, new activities that are happening in this area, you will be informed of. We also have a technical assistance that we provide as part of the Asialeds Partnership for our members. And if you do have any requirements, anything that you would like us to help you with, we will be more than happy to do that. And so please do write to us as well. And we would also be welcome to have any best practices in your region that you know of, and you would like, and you think that other members in the region will also benefit from. So thank you very much for this session, and we look forward to your participation in the following sessions as well. So thank you all. I would like to also thank the speakers, especially today, who have made themselves available at different time zones. And they have truly given us food for thought, and also some new information that we were not aware of previously. So thank you, speakers as well. I wish you all a very good day and be safe, especially during these trying times. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.